My negligence cost my partner her life, and I'm about to lose everything. Plus coworker's side. I, 35 am, have been married to Lisa, 28F, for 3 years, together 7. A year ago, I fell deeply in love with Amy, 24F, and had been planning to end my marriage for her. I know it's terrible and not what my wife deserves, but we were the real thing. 2 weeks ago, she had an allergic reaction when we were getting food after work, but she used her EpiPen and seemed mostly okay afterwards. She usually gets checked at the hospital after a reaction, but I asked if I could take her home and she could get her friend to drive her there because my wife was expecting me back. All I know is that she had a secondary reaction that evening and died. I didn't even find out about it until the following Monday through a work email. It has been eating me up ever since, and I will never forgive myself for not sacrificing an hour of my time to possibly save her. I sent some childish messages to Amy when I didn't hear from her over the weekend because I thought she was angry I didn't take her to the hospital. I am thankful she never saw them and ashamed that I assumed the worst. Our relationship was great and the highs far outweighed the lows, but I have always hated being ignored and I lose my cool when it happens. It is not a regular occurrence, and I would have more than made it up to her. Yesterday at work, HR and legal were in the CEO's office all day, and my manager ended up canceling our project meeting because he was with them all afternoon. I was on edge, but an affair isn't exactly a corporate crisis, and I thought something would have already happened if anyone knew. I am now 99% certain it was about me. A few hours ago, I received a message from Amy's phone, which said, "This is Amy's brother, Tom. I want you to know it was me." I tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail, and none of my messages have been delivered. I tried to call my manager more times than I should have, and he sent a message saying, "Please don't contact me until Monday morning. I can't discuss anything with you right now." So it looks like my universe is going to collapse. I am going to be fired and my wife will definitely find out why. All I can do is hope that Amy's brother only showed them the messages from that weekend, and they were bad enough. I have no family except my wife and daughter and nowhere to go. All of my friends are either people I've met through my wife or my colleagues. On Monday, everything I've spent over a decade working towards disappears. I can't stop it. I can't talk to anyone about it. So here I am. I know cheaters are the devil, so I'm not expecting sympathy. But this is making my chest hurt, and I need to get it out there. Relevant comments. You need to tell your wife before someone else does. You already betrayed her. Don't make it even worse. I won't know 100% until Monday morning exactly how much my work knows, and there is a sliding scale of how bad this will get depending on how much he has given them. If it's everything, my wife will be crushed. If it's only the messages from the weekend she died, it can be much gentler. I don't want to hurt my wife more than absolutely necessary. Why you are something else? One thing I will not apologize for is trying to minimize the damage to my wife. She doesn't deserve any of this. She has been wonderful, and our daughter is my entire world. I know that my reputation is going to be ruined, but I don't need her or anyone else to know the gory details. My message history with Amy undermines the last year of our marriage in fundamental ways, and it would absolutely end her. You deserve everything that happens from this point out. To be this heartless to a woman you made vows to and share a child with is so disgusting. All I can say is that I didn't get to decide who I fell in love with. I would never hurt my wife deliberately, and I will do anything I can to minimize that hurt now that it's inevitable. Your wife is going to be shattered no matter what you do. I get the sense you have no intention of being honest with her, and I caution you against that. She deserves your complete honesty now, despite the fact that you didn't give it to her at any other point. Also, I wouldn't bet on Tom hiding anything to protect your reputation. This is my problem. If he knew what to look for, he could end almost every relationship I have. I've lied to everybody to protect my relationship with Amy, and there is basically a daily timeline of the whole thing reflected in my messages. People I work with are friends with my wife, and I can't have her knowing everything because it would break her, and if she was vindictive, I could truly be left with no one. This has nothing to do with minimizing the damage to your wife, but to yourself. Don't disguise it as anything else. I would be lying if I said that wasn't part of it. I have been scrolling through my messages with Amy, and it just gets worse and worse. I missed family events to be with Amy, and I am concerned that my wife may actually become violent if she finds out about one of them. Just for the heck of it. What was the family event? Her sister suffered a stillbirth, and I couldn't make it to the service because I had committed to attending an event with Amy months in advance. I know it's bad. They probably know everything. Or enough. They could be looking at your work correspondence, emails, instant messages. Plus, she likely had no reason to delete anything from her phone and hide previous messages and calls like you may have. That would be the worst-case scenario. I have felt very anxious throughout the affair because I'm not a naturally dishonest person, and I've taken that out on Amy via message a few times. I also secured her a promotion, and our messages make it clear that it was solely because of our relationship. I made some comments about the promotion on the weekend she died, and if anyone looks back, they're going to pull a thread that could make me look abusive without proper context. That is a major concern, especially with my daughter involved. I've also told some large and hurtful lies which would be exposed because the messages make it clear where I actually was at certain times. This is what would hurt my wife the most. Did she report to you? Or did you just use your position to secure a promotion for her, purely based on your relationship and not her merit? The weekend texts appear bad enough. Her manager is my direct report. I joked a few times in sexual conversations how she still owed me for the promotion, and when she had initially asked about it, I sent her a message with a pretty comprehensive list of reasons I didn't think she was ready. She thought she was, so I asked someone at my level to put a word in. Over the weekend, I basically said that she was unqualified for the role and wouldn't be able to survive doing it anywhere else. I am horrified, but I thought she was being petty and playing games, so I responded in kind. Oh, so you may actually be catching charges as well. I don't think I'm in legal trouble, but morally I definitely am. Someone else in the department had applied for the role, and arguably they were more qualified for it, although neither of them were really. I ensured that they received a good pay raise afterwards and a key role in a very desirable project, and there is evidence of me advocating for that. They will likely be moving into Amy's role now, and we've always had a good relationship, but I understand that they are going to be extremely mad, and I will be apologizing as soon as possible. I just have to take whatever abuse they want to throw at me. I know I deserve it. Someone that wants to rain hellfire on your world is in possession of texts that can be argued to prove a situation of sexual coercion in the workplace. I would not rest easy up. Your bosses are already working out how to protect themselves and the company y'all work for. Enjoy those figurative bus wheels. Bro still thinks he can somehow keep his job and be in a position to do anything. I will not be keeping my job if any of this comes out. I've spent company money on my relationship with Amy, and there's a year's worth of evidence. I have spoken at length about many incriminating things, and I have told her that her job was at risk a few times when we argued. I have suggested I will blacklist her across our industry, which is what I'm particularly worried about, once, because I believe she had told someone we work with about us. The text chain shows us resolving the issue and me apologizing. I am under no illusions as to how serious this situation is. Minimize the damage to your wife? The one you said you were going to leave. Are you still going to leave? I'm desperate to know. Somehow, I doubt it. People can have amicable divorces, and that's what I had hoped to achieve. Amy is the only woman on earth I would have left my wife for. It's selfish and awful, but my wife is 99% perfect, and Amy is 100%. I understand how terrible it is, but I don't know what leaving my wife would have solved if the knowledge of this relationship never came out. I couldn't have ripped my family apart for nothing. Curious, what was the 1% Amy had over your wife? Was it her ruthlessness in pursuing a married man with a young child? Was it her complete lack of moral compass? Was it the fact that your garbage soul recognized her horacity as equally trashy? Edit. Changed whorishness to horacity. It flows better. They're both incredible women, but they couldn't be more different. When my wife walks into a room, it's like a hurricane strike. Everybody sits up straight. She's tall and assertive and extremely intelligent. She's funny and quick, and she dominates in a male-dominated industry where they all love her. She's very straightforward, and she can be far too blunt. Amy was softer. She didn't have to be the smartest or the strongest or the most well-read person in the room. She saw her job as a job, and she wanted to raise a family somewhere cozy. We were going to grow tomatoes in the back garden and keep chickens for eggs and as pets. My wife would have designed an automated hydroponic system and signed us up to a subscription for a local egg co-op. They're just different people who touch different parts of my heart and my mind. Is that why you cheated on your wife? You couldn't handle your wife's intelligence and confidence? They were some of my favorite things about her. I've always admired her strength and determination. I feel like I am really two different people, and they both want two different things. Sometimes I need a partner who is soft and sweet and who needs me to take the lead, and other times I need someone to come in and take control and organize everything and be the loudest voice in the room. The decider was ultimately that I loved Amy more. I knew it in my core. Tom has real Olenna Tyrell energy. True king shit. Realistically, I can't blame him. His sister is dead because Cheaty McCheaterface over here had other things to do. He can't have him arrested, but he can otherwise ruin his life. OP, the absolute worst thing here isn't losing your wife, family, job, or support system. It's living with your guilt. Best of luck. I don't expect this to change your opinion, but she kept reassuring me that everything she was feeling was normal for her attacks and that there was nothing to worry about. We had a long-standing agreement when it came to my home life. I had committed to leaving by the end of this year, but the cost of that was that I had to be extremely careful when it came to us spending time together so I could gently extract myself from my marriage. My work schedule is extremely regular, and if I'm not home when expected, it's a conversation. By the time she felt better after she used her EpiPen, I was cutting it close already. The hospital is a half-hour drive out of my way, so at the time it felt like at least an hour, and probably a few more if I had to check in or stay with her. Obviously, that all feels so stupid now that she's gone. I'd have shouted about us from the rooftops and told my wife then and there if it could get her back. The guilt is indeed the worst bit. The fact is that if you genuinely cared about your wife, you would have been honest with her from the beginning. You keep talking about sparing your wife's feelings, and I'm genuinely confused why. Because I'd imagine finding out that your husband is leaving you and destroying your family because he's in love with someone else is one of the most painful things that can happen. No matter how gentle you are about it, it doesn't change the facts of the matter. I'm getting the impression he was never going to leave his wife. I didn't know the finer details, but I had made a commitment to leave by the end of this year, and I intended to keep to it. My intention was to pull away from my wife gradually and eventually mutually decide to separate. Obviously, that's not happening now, but I want to minimize the harm to her as much as possible. Just admit your wife aged out of your preferred bracket, so you went shopping for a younger model. My wife is more beautiful now than she was the day I met her. She is ferocious and vibrant, and she is going to find a man who is charismatic and social and who earns ridiculous amounts of money. And she's going to make him deliriously happy and occasionally wonder what she ever saw in a sad little man like me. My daughter will probably prefer him. The age gap is a coincidence. Amy and I were simply soulmates. What I don't understand is why you didn't call your wife and say a colleague needed running to the hospital and you'd be straight home after. This feels like it never needed to have got to this point. You were so paranoid and careful, you forgot how normal people respond to things like this. You're right. There are a million things I could have said. We had a pretty strict agreement that my time with her would never infringe on my time with my family, and all I can say is that my head went straight to that instead of where it should. I had no idea a secondary reaction could happen. If I did, this would never have happened. I would never knowingly risk her life. You've literally already said you missed a funeral for a baby to go to an event with your mistress. Don't play like you've never sacrificed your family time before. Ironically, that agreement was the reason I went with Amy. She had asked for one full day and night together each month, and my requirement was that it was booked well in advance. I canceled the first two, and this one was make or break as we were fighting over something else at the time. There is a lot of context, but I stand by my decision. Obviously, my wife wouldn't understand that perspective, and I don't expect her to, which is why I don't want all of this to be dragged out in the open. Weak signal 99, what were the messages? There are too many to even think about. We've had a few very nasty arguments. I've threatened her job, accused her of sleeping with colleagues, spoken badly about people we work with, spoken badly about my wife and family, talked at length about how we can disguise our dates as company expenses, everything. More. I've basically admitted to sabotaging someone else's promotion and acknowledged she wasn't qualified for the role I secured for her, and I've held it against her a few times. Although the messages also show us resolving much of this, and I believe there is growth over the year. Not that anyone will be looking for that. Basically, it's extremely bad. My wife is friends with the people who will be investigating this, if my work actually has access. Deleted comment. I can't even read those comments. All I can do is report them and wonder why someone would say that about a young woman with her entire life ahead of her. I know that my behavior towards her looks bad out of context, but those messages will also show plenty of occasions of her being just as bad. She would call me names and threaten to quit her job and disappear, and she was just as rude about the people we work with as I was. Our relationship had high highs and low lows, but it was completely solid, and we were on track to be together for the long haul. Neither of us were perfect, but we always talked things through and acknowledged our mistakes. Whenever we were together, things were fine. It was when we were apart and relying on messages that things would get stressful. Aside from threatening her job and accusing her of cheating, I understand how bad it looks. All I can say is that I lashed out sometimes, but it was rare and I always made things right afterwards. I knew I couldn't fire Amy, and she knew it too. She had enough photos of us and messages on her phone to end me. We had talked about her being in a position of power over me before, and it allowed our relationship to develop as equals because she had that reassurance. My stress came from the fact that I had secured her a promotion she swore she was ready for, but she wasn't performing at that level, so it was a source of tension in the team. I had to put my neck on the line a few times, and that's very difficult to do without making it clear why. I know none of this makes it better, but putting her in that role was a source of regret, so it was the thing I lashed out with. I know it's childish and that I should have put my foot down from the beginning. The way I saw it was just that we help the people we love. The cheating accusation was a misunderstanding. Someone at work asked her out and she declined, but then he entered some mysterious new relationship he wouldn't tell anyone about. The timing was suspicious and I called it out. I was wrong and we worked through it. I don't know why I'm back to get ripped apart some more, but I'm really not some evil villain who abused a junior colleague. I made her happy. If you don't get fired for the affair, you'll probably get fired for misappropriating company expenses, which you'll then have to explain why, and the end result will be the same, so here's hoping. There is a strong culture of fudging expenses in the business, and I have plenty of evidence of that. I know exactly how much I've spent because it was all under the same account name, which I can also prove, so I believe that offering to pay the money back will be sufficient. Obviously, if I no longer have a job, that will be difficult, but all I can do is offer. I don't think it is going to be a legal issue, but yes, I will definitely be fired if they know what I think they know. Update. 1 week later. I have been consistently harassed for an update since posting, so please take it. Gloat because you're such wonderful people in comparison, then stop following me around Reddit. I am suffering in the wake of my infidelity and unprofessional behavior, as I knew I would. I understand that it is an appropriate outcome, and I am taking full accountability. I was suspended from work on Monday, and I'll probably be fired sooner than I thought. I'd hoped to be able to save money as HR built their case, but it looks like Amy's brother basically performed the entire investigation for them. After an excruciating 3-hour run-through of everything they had, I spoke to the founder, and he recommended the solicitor I am now using. The issue is that the company has to come down hard to protect themselves, because even though Amy's family doesn't have much chance of a claim, any suggestion of a cover-up could cause damage regardless. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court, and some more information has come to light, so it's not certain I won't be prosecuted, but I'm quietly hopeful. I can't afford to keep the solicitor if this goes much further, especially with a divorce on the horizon. Things are not good with my wife. I'm still committed to making this as easy as possible for her, but I had to draw a line when it came to my daughter. When I got home from being unceremoniously escorted out of my office, she already had a bag packed for me. She wouldn't let me wait at the house until my daughter was back. She wouldn't let me check I had everything I needed. She wouldn't let me take the car, and she didn't care that I had nowhere to go. I spent 2 nights in a hotel, then went back when she refused to let me see my little girl. She tried to stop me, but we own the house jointly, and it was my only option. My wife has a family she could stay with, but she won't leave our daughter here, and she's absolutely not taking her, so we're at a stalemate right now. I'm keeping out of her way as best I can, which I appreciate is the least I can do. The Amy situation is quite difficult to talk about, and a lot hasn't sunk in yet. It turns out that she didn't love me as much as I loved her, if at all. Her brother sent me images of her talking to her friends about me, and it's hard to believe they came from the person I loved, but they are real. Sorry to those who were heavily invested in me being a predatory abuser, but she and her friends had a good laugh about her manipulating me for money and a promotion. The role came with a big pay rise, and it looks like her plan was to treat it as free cash, then go work with one of her friends when it fell through. She knew I'd come under scrutiny whenever she messed up and assumed I'd keep stepping in to save her. She was right. Obviously, I am completely humiliated. I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. My feelings are complicated, so please don't feel entitled to any expansion on this, but I no longer feel guilt over her death. Reddit acted like I kept her hostage while she begged for help. What actually happened was that I asked if she could ask her friend to take her to the hospital because I had to go home. She said that was fine because she needed to get some clothes back from her anyway, and I dropped her off as normal. Ultimately, she was an adult who had a better understanding of her medical needs than I did. I still don't know what happened between us saying goodbye and her death, but whatever it was, it had nothing to do with me. I'm sorry for her family's loss, but I bear no responsibility for her passing. After Amy's messages to her friends were passed around, a few people quietly reached out with words of support. I assumed everyone would write me off like Reddit did, as an abuser and predator. Now it's clear that Amy was using me. They see me as a fool who had then lost it all. It's beyond humiliating, but I have learned I'd rather be pitied than despised, and it improves my legal position with work. They're small mercies, but I'll take what I can get. I remain filled with regret, and I will have learned many lessons by the time I get through this. I may have been deceived, but I am a grown man who made my choices, and I take full responsibility for them. TLDR, I am currently suspended from work, but will certainly be fired. It's unclear whether I am in serious legal trouble. My wife and I are not navigating the end of our relationship brilliantly, but for my daughter's sake, we will get better. Amy turned out to be a better manipulator than she was a project manager, and her brother outed her whilst trying to ruin me. Life is deservedly hard right now, but I'm working through it. Relevant comments. I think it was clear to most of us that you were being used. You certainly are not the first guy who gave up a wonderful life for the ego boost from a young, ambitious woman. Your poor wife and daughter, still putting your needs above theirs. My daughter is my absolute priority and will continue to be. I will do anything to make this as healthy and painless as possible for her. My wife tried to weaponize her, and whilst I'm willing to give her a lot of latitude in this situation, there have to be boundaries. I was planning to give up everything to build a life with her, and she was treating me like a joke the whole time. Dude, read what you wrote. You were willing to give up everything to be with Amy. Everyone, including your daughter, don't try to play the role of a good father. You lost that when you cheated on her mother. I would have, and will, have 50-50 custody of my daughter. That is the default in the UK, and it is completely appropriate because I have always been a 50-50 parent. Even when you were lying and sneaking off with your 10-year junior affair partner. Is that when you were 50-50 parenting? What a joke. Hope he healed so quickly he was on the adultery sub 3 days ago. Hope all of this is fake because no one can be this self-centered. Did you even read the post? Why are you so obsessed with what Amy told her friends about you? I thought your priority was your daughter? Stop wasting time trying to understand Amy's intentions just cause your fragile ego has been torched. I can focus on the future whilst having questions about things that have already happened. I can't imagine what a black and white world you must live in. The woman I was planning a life with died. Then I found out she betrayed me throughout the entire relationship. How could anyone immediately accept that and move on with no thoughts or questions? I no longer feel guilt over her death. She's the woman you planned to spend your life with? Good grief. I can assure you I haven't healed one bit from any of this. My life is in shambles. The fact that she has died is not going to rob me of my right to be angry with her. I ruined my life, but she was right there with her hands on the wheel. She talked to me about getting married and having more children and what our house would look like. And on the same day, she called me names and plotted with her friends about having me get her a credit card. I told her my hopes and fears, and she mocked me relentlessly for them. I thought she was my soulmate, and she exploited me in every way you can imagine. How the fuck am I supposed to feel? Affairs can cause emotional trauma on children. How selfish to subject your daughter to trauma just to get your dick wet. Your wife is not weaponizing your daughter. She's protecting her against you. You're not the victim here. Don't act like one. Your wife and daughter are the victims. She's 5 years old. If she notices anything is wrong, then we have both failed as parents. Children are adaptable, and they can easily be kept away from situations that should exclusively be dealt with by adults. My relationship with my daughter does not have to suffer because of the breakdown of my marriage. My wife does not get to protect my daughter from me when I have caused her no harm. We are completely equal parents under the law, regardless of whether fathers have rights on Reddit. I honestly can't believe that a father not walking away from his child is controversial. Regardless of what you think of me as a person, it is not in my 5-year-old daughter's interest to have one of the top 3 people in her world disappear suddenly. The founder still thinks my offer to pay them back will keep it out of court. So did you steal money from your company on top of abusing your authority at work? My expense account largely funded my relationship with Amy. It wasn't unusual in the company we worked at, but now there is a potential scandal. They're suddenly shocked and appalled by my actions. Good for them. How much are you talking here? Hundreds? Thousands? A few thousand. Uncomfortable given that I don't currently know exactly when my income is going to terminate, but I'll get it back to them. I had the same question. So you believe they will be digging through your expenses and asking you to repay any expense related to your relationship with Amy? For what it's worth, I'm not going to behead you. Obviously, what you did to your family was brutal to read, and as a woman, I feel for your wife. I'm also old enough to know that life is messy and complicated, and the heart can lead you to making bad choices. I'm assuming your life over this past year has involved tunnel vision, and all you saw and all you could see was the happy life you'd have once the dust had settled. Amy isn't without fault, as she not only knew you were married with a child, but unlike you, not led by her heart, but her selfish desire to get what she hadn't earned, promotion, money. I think that after everything that's happened, you should let your wife take your daughter, with an understanding that you'll have visitation. Your wife's entire world blew up with one phone call, and she deserves the space away from you without leaving her daughter behind. You owe her that much, and you've acted in your own self-interest long enough. Give the woman some peace. Thank you for this. I was willing to leave my home as long as visitation was assured. Unfortunately, my wife is taking things hard enough to want to keep me from my daughter, and it's the one line I just can't see crossed. Now there is clearly no trust on either side, so I can't leave my home for the foreseeable. A hotel was going to be unsustainable anyway. It would rapidly eat at my savings. I don't blame my wife for being angry and petty and wanting to make me as uncomfortable as possible. In terms of my expenses, I disguised them all under the same client, so they're very easy to identify. It was primarily to hide the evidence of my affair from my wife. It didn't even feel like stealing, so I didn't go to great lengths to hide it. We used to spend all kinds of things. The culture around it was terrible. I realized that's no excuse. I haven't been asked to pay anything back. I offered to as soon as this all came to light. The company may be prosecuting me, but I've engaged with a solicitor, which greatly increases my chances of keeping this out of the courts. It's all still very early days, so what happens next is up in the air. Thank you again for sharing your very sensible thoughts. Dude, get out of your wife's house. Stay with a friend. Find a studio apartment. But don't torture her like this. She doesn't deserve it. You can't scream about visitation being kept from you when you're not even making an effort to move out. You are very nakedly doing this to keep your wife under your thumb, and it sucks. It really, really sucks. It's not her house, it's ours, and I want her to keep it, but right now it just can't happen that cleanly. I have behaved horribly, but that doesn't magic me up a place to live whilst we figure things out. My income is clearly about to stop, so I can't dip into savings that may be needed to keep us on top of the mortgage. Real people have complicated lives, and just go doesn't cut it. I was prepared to leave in the immediate aftermath and find a way to make it work out of respect for my wife, but I quite simply will not be kept from my child, and I make no apology for that. I don't want her under my thumb and never did. She is going to town on me, and quite rightly. She sees me as a pathetic idiot who was taken in by a young woman trying her luck, and she reads the things Amy said about me aloud every day. She's right. The things she says about Amy are almost cathartic, the things she says about me less so. She's hurt and angry and trapped, and it's all my fault. I hate what I have done to her more than anything else about this situation. Deleted comment. Thank you for your input, but I will continue to refer to the deed. I know Reddit likes neat and simple stories, and that this isn't that. We have an entire life to unpick. 2. I was not refusing to set up a stable environment for my child the day after I was kicked out of my house. Having a child isn't like having an exercise bike. You don't just put it away somewhere when you're between homes. I could have collected her from school and taken her to eat, then dropped her home. If my wife was happy for me to go in the house, I could have put her to bed. There were options on the table, and my wife took them off. 3. I can't argue with anyone's assessment of my character at this point. Honest question, how stupid are you? You funded your liaisons with your mistress almost entirely with company funds? You put all of your defrauding in writing, in one of the most difficult to fully delete forms of communication that there is? I mean, you didn't quite jump onto your boss's desk naked and yell, "I'm committing a crime." But you may as well have. All I can say is that side of it didn't feel serious until it did. I planned to leave my wife for Amy, so our messages were never a concern, and the company culture around expenses was to milk them for all they were worth. It's no excuse, but none of it seemed like it could collapse in some mad house of cards scenario. You gave your wife 2 days. 2 days to absorb and try to understand everything before you demanded your parental rights. To understand not only that you cheated, but that the affair partner is now dead, you might be responsible, you embezzled company funds. You could be sued by not only your employer, but the affair partner's family, and you could go to jail. To understand that she's not only lost her husband, but her life as she knows it. That she might also be financially ruined by your actions. That the health and welfare of your daughter will be impacted by your actions. That any dreams of the future of your family are all gone. You said that you wanted to minimize the impact on your wife, but the moment you didn't get what you wanted, you decided she was the bad guy. You decided that your wants, again, were more important than anything else. How could any parent who cares one iota about their child think that leaving them in your custody would be safe? Because you said so? The whole world knows the value of your word. You are a stranger to your wife. What woman would leave their child with a stranger who is a liar, adulterer, embezzler, verbally and financially abusive to their affair partner, and potentially responsible for the affair partner's death? It doesn't matter that you say the situation is different, as there is no value in what you say now. Your actions will impact your daughter, even at her young age. Something this big and horrendous will not remain a secret and will follow her throughout her life. You have lost your daughter simply because of the stigma of having an awful parent who could do all these things. People are not kind, even though a child is innocent. You should actually do something right by your family and leave. You being there is not good for anyone, especially your daughter. If you think I'm giving up my daughter because my wife's feelings are hurt, you must be crazy. That's not how real life works. I made it clear that I would keep communication purely around my daughter and that I could pick her up and drop her off without my wife even having to see me. There are consequences to my actions, and there are consequences to hers. I am prepared to give up a lot during the split, but access to my daughter isn't on the table. What actions did she commit that deserve consequences? I left my home voluntarily because it was the right thing to do. My only stipulation was access to my daughter. My wife denied that, so I went back. I had one hard line, and she crossed it immediately. I understand what I have done, and I acted accordingly by leaving the house I own jointly, not insisting on taking the car I own outright, and committing to remaining invisible to my wife until she is ready to either talk or proceed directly with the divorce. I was completely willing to do all of that because I am in the wrong here, and there is no question of that. The only thing I can't tolerate is being kept from my daughter because she doesn't deserve to have her father ripped from her life. By trying to keep me from her, my wife destroyed a lot of goodwill that objectively benefited her. Now we go forward on that basis. I have a hard time believing a hospital or an urgent care wasn't on the way home. Or calling your wife to say, hey, my colleague had an allergic reaction at dinner. I'm going to take her to the hospital and then be home. I'm so confused why this wasn't treated as an emergency. People who go into anaphylaxis or asthma attack or heart attack, you name it, are not in their right state of mind and need to be supervised. That's not how it was. She had the reaction in the restaurant, and about 10 minutes later we moved to the tables outside so she could get some air, and she was very shaky at that point. Within about 40 minutes, she was well enough to walk to the car, and we were talking the whole time, from about 5 minutes after her EpiPen. She even joked about how terrible she'd feel the next day. When I asked her if she could have her friend take her, it seemed like no big deal. She treated it like no big deal. If she'd said we needed to go right then, I would have done it without question. I followed her lead. It was my first time, and she's been an allergy sufferer her entire life. The nearest hospital was half an hour in the opposite direction of my house. I think Amy's family has an excellent legal claim against you. Quite a few angles they could take too. My very expensive solicitor, who is an actual solicitor, disagrees. I bear no responsibility, legal or otherwise. Even if it's not meritorious, the claim can still be brought. At which point your very expensive solicitor will require another retainer. If things go that way, then I'll deal with it. The family has already royally screwed itself by releasing the proof of Amy talking to her friends. I'd be in a much worse position if they hadn't, and I can only assume that if they don't already know that, they will soon. They were so keen to hurt my feelings that they dragged her reputation into the gutter and showed her for what she was. If they'd have kept quiet, I'd be fucked. Editor's note. I will be using Coworker for ease of readability to avoid confusion with the first OOP. I'm a coworker of someone whose Reddit story about work went viral. I'm feeling chatty, so AMA I guess. 15 months later from OOP's update. I'm in the comments because I worked at the same company as this guy and in the same department as his affair partner who died under very sad circumstances. You can read all about it from his perspective, conveniently. I only joined Reddit quite recently, but I was aware of the post a few weeks after it was made because it was passed around the office and gave us all a ton of information, which made a lot of things suddenly make sense. We were all extremely invested at the time, and weirdly, the story you all saw set off a series of events which basically led to an entire division of the company quitting. I've seen it repeated on a few of those TikTok Reddit read-through accounts, and a few people in the comments of the post I saw earlier today seemed interested. So because the company didn't think to get me to sign any additional confidentiality agreements when I left, an equally dramatic, but also closely related story, I figured I'd spend a Friday night drinking wine and spilling tea if anyone wants some. One thing I do need to mention is that the original OP has a brain injury he didn't disclose in his posts. I can't speculate too much on that, and I'm not saying it makes his actions forgivable, but it would be crazy to pretend it's not a factor. He lives independently, but from what I'm aware, his brother helps him a lot. Coworker's response in the previous Bo Are You? Commenter. Does anyone know what happened to this POS at the end? Are the wife and daughter doing okay? Is Tom still a badass? Editor's note. Tom is Amy's brother. Coworker. Dropping by months later to answer your question. I used to work with OP, and people still talk about his posts IRL. Wife and daughter are fine. She kept the house and is in another relationship. Tom cost their family her death benefits, then turned up at one of OP's colleagues' houses, trashed her car, and got arrested. The original post didn't even cover half of the craziness. Editor's note. The coworker has responded to as many questions as they were able to. I am posting top common questions asked in responses. Relevant comments from coworker's post. Commenter 1. It's so interesting how the fact that he had a brain injury changes this story and makes it make a different sort of sense. Like how, on the other hand, you and your coworkers reading the Reddit post did the same, but in a different way. Coworker. Oh, for sure. We were absolutely horrified by some of the things people were saying to him when it started getting passed around, and we were really worried about how he'd take it all. There was talk of creating an account to explain, but because it was looking like it might end up in court, no one wanted to risk it. Can't blame them really, but it's definitely mad how much that fact changes things. Commenter 2. Did it end up going to court? Coworker. No. They all used to abuse their expenses, and they knew he could bury everyone if it ever saw the inside of a courtroom. He claimed to be running out of money in his last post, but it was common knowledge he got a huge payout after his accident. A sign wasn't properly mounted on a shop front, and it fell on him when he was walking past, so he could have easily afforded to take it all the way. I imagine the first question would have been why they gave someone with brain damage a company card with no restrictions and no written policy on what they could and couldn't use it for. Commenter 3. I read quite a bit of that post and checked out all of your comments. Thanks for adding on more details. My question, had your coworker not gotten the brain injury, Do you think he still would have done what he did? Coworker. I wasn't particularly close to him, but the common take is that he wouldn't have given his affair partner the time of day before his injury. She was really unpleasant. By all accounts, he was a really devoted husband and father. He definitely wasn't a saint, but he calmed down a lot when his daughter was born and he talked about her all the time. Commenter 4. With as much detail as you can get into, how did this guy's mess lead to the whole cascade of people quitting? Also, I'm fascinated by the affair partner's brother's arrest and all the drama he brought down on the whole office. What happened there? Coworker. He mentioned in his posts that one of the founders of the company gave him advice about the situation and got him in touch with the solicitor who ended up representing him. That was the stick they used to beat the founder in question with. And after an EGM, editor's note, extraordinary general meeting, he was suddenly no longer with us in any capacity. The founder was the inventor of the technology we based all of our work on, and he is a genius, but also a great guy. He was absolutely and consistently and correctly opposed to our stuff being applied to defense. As soon as he was pushed out, we got a new brief, and the TLDR is that the entire R&D division, editor's note, research and development, was handpicked by him, and we were collectively smart and talented enough to be fine after we quit on the spot when killing brown kids became part of the role. The general take was that they wanted him gone because he was standing in the way of some juicy contracts, and that was the opportunity that presented itself. I don't know the gory details because I don't work at that level, but the version that filtered down was that he acted against the interests of the business. Defense is where the money is, and the tech was pretty much perfect for the sector. Commenter 5. The other candidate for the promotion that got shafted in favor of his affair partner, how did she take the news that said partner was only promoted and held her position due to a quid pro quo? Did she ever get that promotion, or did she quit the company as well? Coworker. It was a man, and if I get a say, he'll never work again. One part of Tim's original story that is outright untrue is that neither his affair partner or the other candidate were fully qualified for the role. The other guy was more than qualified, and that's about the only good thing I can say about him. I was there when he got his revenge, and I haven't spoken to him since, along with pretty much everyone present. On paper, I totally agree that the OP deserved to get the shit kicked out of him, but when it actually happened, it was like watching a child being abused. He was scared and confused and didn't defend himself in any way. I nearly cried at the thought of it whilst writing this comment. It was truly disgusting. The other guy was wronged in a really significant way, but there's absolutely no excuse for what he did. Commenter. My apologies if I missed this in his original post, but the candidate who was overlooked ended up beating up the OP/male coworker who had the affair. Coworker. Yet Tim didn't mention it in his posts, but the other candidate beat him halfway to hell when it all came out. This all happened in the bar next to the office after he'd been fired. I don't know why he turned up because he didn't really get a chance to say much before the other guy. I'm trying not to introduce names because Tim used everyone's real name in the OP, started absolutely thrashing him. It was awful. People were in tears watching it happen. Commenter 6. What's the common consensus on why he ended up starting the affair with her after his brain injury? Also, did you recognize the reasoning behind his original post as distinctly him? And if so, is his reasoning something that he's always had, or did it come about post-injury? Coworker. To be honest, he seemed sharper in the post than he does in real life. But we were all very aware of his issues. He had some problems with memory, his mood went up and down a lot, and he would behave quite childishly sometimes. So we maybe treated him with kid gloves more than was necessary. He was definitely doing good work. Once they took him away from clients, though, I used to regularly get requests from him, and they were always solid. In terms of the affair, I think it's as simple as her showing interest. He was a bit pervy after the accident, not even remotely the case before. He never said anything over the line, but he'd stare a bit, and his facial expressions were sometimes like if a 12-year-old boy walked in on you changing. Some of the messages that came out after the fact painted the picture. She would say the same things to him every few days, and when she wanted something, she asked and asked like it was a brand new request until he said yes. Commenter 7. Do you know what texts he sent the affair partner over the weekend that he was worried about? Coworker. I never saw them, but they sounded more pathetic than aggressive from what I heard, and very much in line with his usual reaction to feeling ignored. He wasn't really aware of the boundaries between asking and pestering. I logged in on a Monday morning a few times to something like, question, hello? Hello? Why aren't you answering? I know you've seen this. Why are you ignoring me? Are you mad with me? I should be mad with you. This could be make or break for the company. You're not committed to the company. I always knew you were useless. Everyone thinks it. Are you there? Why aren't you answering me? We are going to lose this client if you don't get back to me today. Hello? Hello? Are you okay? You get the idea. Tens of messages. But as soon as I'd answer the question, he'd thank me and be totally professional with his follow-up. The best way I can describe it is that he was fine right up to the point where he needed to regulate himself in any way. He couldn't have sat in a client meeting, but because we all knew the score, we worked to keep him leveled out. I can't see him saying anything particularly horrible to her. I can almost guarantee you I've looked her in the eye and said worse. Commenter 8. That's what blows my mind about the TBI, because of how well written everything is. Do you think he used AI to assist him? It's just so interesting that he could hold down a corporate job that definitely isn't entry level, yet he can't independently handle his own finances. What kind of accident did he have that caused the injury? Coworker. I don't think he'll ever work again. He kept his job because he was adored and respected, and he knew the tech inside and out even after the accident. But there's no way he could properly navigate a corporate environment from scratch. The accident would have been funny if it didn't have such a horrible outcome. He was walking down the street, and the sign above a dry cleaners fell on him. In the early days, they thought he was going to need to go into full-time care permanently, but his wife dropped everything and basically devoted her life to his rehabilitation. He is very lucky to have had her. He's impulsive now, and he doesn't really know how to regulate his emotions, but he can hold a conversation and will occasionally say something wildly funny or insightful. AI could have helped, or maybe even his brother. But the thing that shocked me most was that he seemed to stay on an even keel throughout the post and comments. He's quite up and down IRL, even via text. Commenter 9. What was Amy like? What was her brother like? I saw a comment somewhere that the brother got arrested for something as a result of conversations between Amy and others that he disclosed. What happened? Coworker. I'm going to speak ill of the dead. She was horrible. Lazy, judgmental, mean, and arrogant. When she was promoted into project management, she didn't bother learning the core tech, so her decisions were consistently poor, which forced us to go around her all the time to get to reasonable outcomes. She once told me I'd never get a husband, then burst into tears and complained to HR when I asked where the queue of men wanting to put a ring on her finger was. She would pick at the weaker members of the team, highly technical people who were very sweet but lacked social skills usually, and was a general bully. I was pretty nasty to her too, so my hands aren't exactly clean, but I had great relationships with everyone else, so I do think she was the problem. The brother sent lots of messages in, and the company ended getting the phone and passcode from him. I'm very light on details on this one, but whatever was on there was damning enough for them to cancel her death and service benefits, which were going to go to her mom. The brother sent some threatening messages and managed to find out where the HR head lived. I don't know exactly what he did to her car, but it was a write-off, and he was arrested for it. We got a big email saying legal action was pending and that any comms from him needed to be forwarded straight to a dedicated email address. I left while that was all pending, so never heard a follow-up, but I doubt it went very far given how sticky the whole situation was. Coworker on OOP's personality. Coworker. His personality definitely changed significantly. He can hold a conversation and his knowledge level remained extremely high, but he became quite immature and couldn't deal with anything if he wasn't expecting it. He could provide really insightful feedback about something we were working on, then 2 minutes later lose his temper or shut down completely because he'd spilled a drink. He had to step back from dealing with clients because he couldn't be trusted. He'd just say yes to whatever they asked for, and it led to a few nasty surprises. He didn't take any new clients after the injury, so they were generally very understanding because they saw the same changes we did. It's tough to explain. If you met him on a good day, you could spend a few hours with him and not realize. But any more than that, and you'd almost certainly go through, "Oh, that was a bit odd," to, "Okay, there's definitely something wrong here." To my knowledge, nobody tried to figure out how aware he was of the brain injury. The key phrase drummed into us when he started coming back to the office a bit was, "Meet him where he is," and he was a really well-respected member of the team, so we were all really sympathetic to the situation. I did hear him make a few comments about his brain being broken, but they were fairly lighthearted and mainly centered around him forgetting small things. Commenter 10. Regarding the TBI, when exactly did that happen? Was it before or after the affair? Was it before or after he blew off the SIL's stillborn child service so he could be with the AP? Coworker. His accident was in 2022, so long before any of this stuff, and everyone who knows him is of the opinion that the TBI was the driving factor for the affair and everything that came afterwards. Missing the memorial service for the baby was something we only knew about because of the post, and even knowing his challenges, it's impossible to be anything other than disgusted by it. Coworker provides more details on why Amy wasn't taken to the hospital. Coworker. I mentioned in another comment that this was one of the big unanswered questions everyone had about the situation after we saw the post. We're in the UK, so an ambulance doesn't have strings attached, and that would have been the logical choice as soon as she had a reaction. I saw a comment today that really bothered me though. I didn't know that confusion is one of the after effects of anaphylaxis. When we were told what to do if she had a reaction, Anything beyond administering her EpiPen came down to calling 999 and following their instructions. I can't stop thinking about the possibility that she was completely and blatantly out of it when she agreed to go home, and that he just didn't pick up on it because of his TBI. It's clear that I didn't like her, but that's a fucking horrendously sad way to go out. Did the coworker and OOP know each other before the accident? Coworker. I joined the company in 2018, so I spent more time with him before his accident than after. All strictly at work and work events though. We weren't friends, but he was like a totally different person. Bits of his original personality did come through as time went on, but not anywhere near the point where you could forget you were dealing with a fundamentally different personality.